shovelling coal from the face to the furnace, smoke spews, spitting blood, stoking boilers, steam under pressure, venting turbines, current becomes power. Coal production. China, 2,380 million tonnes. 6,000 known miners dead, 70,000 new cases of lung disease a year. USA, 1,053 million tonnes. 28 known miners dead, 30,000 new cases of lung disease a year. India, 492.95 million tonnes. Unknown miners dead, unknown cases of lung disease. Computers jolt into life, crash and reboot, volts flickering, flowing through the logic gates of promise, lung disease, pneumoconiosis, white finger. Coal dust everywhere, open wounds of the past, present, compressed into our white goods, trapped into the soot of our chimneys, fired into our processors. Infected computers speak of compensation. Minus total claims, 592,000. Live, 241,000. Deceased, 351,000. Claims settled, 581,000. Administration costs, 2.3 billion, including 1.3 billion for claimants' legal fees. Miners' average claim, 3,000. Coal dust blows east to China and south to India, setting the earth on fire with its blackness. Children grovel over slag, trading food for pneumoconiosis. 500,000 people die each year of coal-related lung disease, with many of those remaining invisible to the database machines they fuel, caught up in the routine atrocity of producing our computers and powering them. Each computer takes over 250 kilograms of fossil fuel to produce. Our way of life consumes bodies, lungs turn black, bones malform to feed the machines, muscles ripped and brains bludgeoned as we progress and develop towards a destination that never comes. We need the nameless poor to die for us, moving on from slave labour to factories to deregulated enterprises. Slaves were branded, recorded, numbered, classified and priced. Today, most Chinese and Indian mine workers never enter into our ledgers and databases. Their underground and invisible labour is the lifeblood of a free market economy, where nameless bodies are no more value than the coal dust that enters their lungs. Stoke the boiler.
The steam engine emerges first from the mine. Then it starts to make rails for itself. Then those rails turn into telegraphs. Then those telegraphs turn into telephones. All the substances in those media have all been dug out of mines. A 100-year-old 35-ton Showman's steam engine powers a computer with 1.5 tons of coal. Black lungs inflate every time a database record of a miner's lung disease is shown on the computer's monitors. It feels like you've been invited into a fun fair, but one where the rides log their own accidents. A fun fair run by people who long ago became indistinct from the machines they maintain. Over 3 days at the Discovery Museum with groups of miner activists, coal-fired computers articulates relations between power, art and media.
Right, we've got steam traction engine outside, that provides the power.
I think it's interesting the fact that we had the computers down in the Discovery Museum powered by the big traction engine outside, which was coal-fired of course, so the computers themselves were coal-fired. And the teenagers who come in and were playing on the computers were asking what was the relevance of the big machine outside with the belch and the smoke. And when we said, you know, it powers the computers, you could see the non-comprehension. Like how can that thing with the coal like make this work?
What to the computers? Carry it.
Now we've got running two databases, one depicts the compensation claims that were awarded to me as a result of the and it will reflect the amount it was awarded and then how it was divided. So that one.
Coal-fired computers reflects on the complexities of our global fossil fuel reliance, and especially on how coal transforms our health as we have transformed it. Today, coal produces 42% of the world's electricity. In many countries, this rate is much higher, more than 70% in India and China.
And so what's that clicking noise?
According to the World Health Organization, 318,000 deaths occur annually from chronic bronchitis and emphysema caused by exposure to coal dust.
This is a record of somebody who worked as a miner, yeah? And he's dead. And it's a record of his past.
The common perception is that wealthy countries have put all this behind them, displacing coal dust into the lungs of unrecorded, unknown miners in distant lands, coal returning into our lives in the form of cheap and apparently clean goods we consume. Coal-fired computers brings together these disparate elements into an artwork, allowing us to reflect on the complexities that have created and maintained power, the crisis of fueling that power, and its subsequent health residues.
For me, trying to connect the steam engine from 100 years ago or 200 years ago to a computer now kind of had a huge symbolic resonance to it.
Politics is coal. Coal is politics, particularly on this island, and it's hard to understand anything of the history of the development of industrialism and imperialism and politics and the political views without an understanding of coal. That's why anybody who sets off with the idea of understanding the 84-85 miners' strike and thinks it's just about job losses is severely missing the point. I mean, a person who loses a job at Woolworths, of course, is quite upset about it, and it devastates their particular family. But the attitude towards the social cleansing and economic change that happened with the coal industry was something of a qualitatively different order. Because Thatcher's programme was one of smashing the trade union movement in Britain, and it was a clash of ideologies. She had a specific ideology which was aimed at breaking the organised power of the working class.
In 1984, the National Coal Board announced the closure of 20 mines. 20,000 jobs would be lost, and many communities in the north of England and Wales would lose their primary source of employment. Sensitive to the impact of the proposed closures in their own areas, miners in various coal fields began strike action. This is a critical point in UK political history at which neoliberalism and globalization started to dominate national politics. Thatcher crushed the strike and the unions with it after qualifying them as the enemy within in an 80s civil street war. The miners' strike officially ended on the 3rd of March 1985, leaving bitter miners no other choice than returning to work heads held high.
It was a huge blow to have to face up to the realisation that we had nowhere left to go.
Art in this context becomes a calming anaesthetic, warmly suffusing our social bodies, blunting the convulsions as everything goes critical. Art fills the gaps of economic Darwinism's lack of imagination, a cheap panacea for social inclusion, economic regeneration, health inequalities, and the maintenance of an unfair world.
My deep motivations, I suppose, underlying a project like this, bringing back all the miners that are lost, that have made up our world, and being able to allow them to breathe through these lungs.
I think coal mining is a really creative but destructive force, and I think that's what I felt when I saw the installation. Obviously it resonates with me on a really personal level because my grandfather's died of emphysema, and my father's recently claimed for incapacity benefit for his lungs.
But actually what gives it a kind of vibrancy and gives me confidence is when you place that in a public setting, like in the Discovery Museum, because then that starts to be about people making connections.
It's about raising consciousness and trying to inspire people.
The great thing about an art space is that you can bring those things into the same proximity. There's nowhere else left, nowhere free in this society where you can bring elements together and allow people to reflect on them, you know what I mean, in a way that then allows them to imagine maybe a different world or maybe a different way of doing things.